So anyway, I'm going to do a little introduction. My name is Sandra Golvin, and I'm an LNF, I'm also a JD. I have a long sordid history. I want to attempt to talk tonight about lesbian child development. The title is, this is part 2 of a three-part series on this subject. And the first part, I forget the title, but it had to do with the earliest mommy-baby relatedness and from birth. And really, I actually spent a lot of time talking about what happens in the first little period, maybe weeks or months after birth, between the mother and the infant, talking a lot from the standpoint of Winnicott. And I'm talking to you, Shirley, because everybody else was here.
Oh,
everyone who's here was here at that talk.
You get the card in time.
That won't happen again. So, but if you don't need to know that in order to understand what's going on here, because I'm gonna review it, and I'll go over it. So you will not have missed anything other than.
I mean, everyone else here had attended
Part
part 1.
Yeah. So.
Well, don't spend, too much time since they've heard it.
That's okay. It bears repeating. My point of view.
Oh, great.
I think.
Well, they all agree.
Yeah. It bears repeating because there's these ideas having to do with what actually happens inside a lesbian child in the earliest stages of development really hasn't been parsed out really at all in the literature as far as I know.
Right.
So, and I say as far as I know because recently, actually about just only 5 months ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, something called ocular melanoma. So I lost the vision in this eye, and it's very hard for me to read. So if there's any late-breaking news in this department, I don't know about it. And if anybody does, I'm happy to hear about it and receive the information. As a result of the cancer, it's just very, very timely, this particular topic, because the effect of the cancer has been to thrust me implacably into my body in a way I've never been before. I'm a thinking type, and as I talked about last time, Winnicott, he says that in the very first weeks of life, the child needs to experience a perfect holding environment so that the child can develop a sense of what he calls going on being, which is that life is, that the world is safe, and the child has a sense of relaxation and safety in her own existence. And if that doesn't happen, very, very frequently what you see is a kind of splitting off of this hyperactive thinking function, where the thinking goes on and on and on, sort of hysterically trying to substitute for that original holding environment that didn't happen. And so I have certainly had the experience since this cancer of watching my thinking, trying to make sense and trying to make it safe, and my body going deeper and deeper into increasingly difficult feeling states that I understand to be not the cancer, but that the cancer is sort of burning away my dissociative defenses against the early trauma. And that the early trauma caused me to basically psychically evacuate my body. And the feltness of being inside my body. And that the effect of the cancer has been to force me back into those earliest feeling states that I just simply numbed out and dissociated from. And that's how I've been working with what's been some very intense nausea and really severe back pain, and now my liver, which is implicated, is there's pressure there. There's just all kinds of things happening inside my body, and I think it's. I'm talking about myself because I feel this is relevant because I'm a lesbian, and the feeling states that I'm experiencing are not disconnected from my trying to become, from birth on, a lesbian person embodied in my body, which is pretty much a forbidden state of affairs in our culture, and has been for hundreds of years, actually. And so it makes sense to me that there'd be a lot of pain and suffering, as well as some surprisingly ecstatic kind of experiences too that come along with it. So I'm going to refer to my experience to try to talk about this material, and also try to talk about what's going on with me even as I try to talk about it, because I think part of what I felt, it was really hard for me to get here. I've had since the last talk daily, except on weekends, daily doses of radiation, which have caused me to be rather fatigued and exhausted. But I also understand this as enormous internal pressure not to speak what I'm going to speak here. And that there's an infant in me who wants to just give up and go, it's too hard, it's futile, I don't have the energy, and I'm exhausted. And I think that that experience can be generalized. That's not just me. It's like to show up in a public setting or anywhere, even in the privacy of me, with the truth of my lesbian experience, feels is to come up against enormous pressures of silencing and annihilation. And so it takes some intestinal fortitude or something to show up here and talk, and even also to try to stay inside my body and not just, and when I say stay inside my body, like that implies like I'm in it, which of course I'm not. I'm like, it's a very dicey proposition how much I'm in my body, but certainly there's pain and nausea and things that definitely get me in my body. But anyway, to try to do that and not just do some kind of disassociated theoretical presentation, which is something I've been doing my whole life. And my body, as I've tried to prepare for this talk, my body has just been, no way, we're not doing that, we're not letting that, blah, 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 go on, no. So it's like, okay, I'm going to try to let the body have her voice here, too. So it's a struggle, but it seems well worth the effort. Right? Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about Okay, I want to say that this approach that I'm putting forward here is a depth psychological approach. So when we say lesbian child development, it's actually talking about inside the psyche, like what happens inside the psyche as a result, not only of what the baby comes in with, which is a kind of, we can look at from an archetypal dimension, but also in terms of the interaction with the environment. And I think that, okay, so I'm going to go to this idea about the feminine doubles. I'm saying archetypally. Archetypally, okay, what is an archetype? One way of understanding the archetypes is that it's like the DNA of the psyche. So that we all come in with like 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth and 2 ears. We're all like previously imprinted to come in with a certain shape and form in the body. There's intestines and organs and whatever that is. And then each one of us comes in individually, put together, all those elements which are universal in all humans are then put together uniquely in each human being. Well, the same thing is true with the DNA and the psyche. There are these basic archetypes that we all have in the what Jung called the collective unconscious, and but they constellate differently in each one of us, depending on things that are in the realm of the mysteries that I don't really understand. So I'm not going to go down that road, but maybe I will a little bit at some point. So one of the major archetypes Jung talked about was the idea of the anima and the animus. Jung talked about, and this is from a heterosexual point of view, that women have an inner masculine, contrasexual, and men have an inner feminine, contrasexual, and that inner contrasexual figure is the pathway to the divine and the soul. And so he called that inner figure the soul figure. And Mitch Walker had the insight that that there is not only a contrasexual figure, but there's also a same-sex archetypal figure. And he called that the double. And we all have it in us, whether we're heterosexual or homosexual or fluid or bisexual or anywhere on the scale. We all have both those things archetypally inside us. But if the contrasexual figure is charged with eros and libido, then that means you're heterosexual. It means you're going to be drawn heterosexually, and it's very, very compelling. It's that charge between the ego and that soul figure is just about as powerful as it gets. I mean, it's like, I'm speaking from about radiation, it's radioactive, really, at a lot of levels. If you've ever really looked at somebody or fallen for somebody, what that feels like. It's radioactive, it's compelling beyond everything else. And the same is true for gay people in relationship to the double, the same-sex figure. That relationship, if charged by libido and eros, is equally radioactive and compelling. And when one connects with it, one has the sense of being connected with the divine in its light, on the light side. And all of these archetypes also have a shadow side. So one can also have the experience of being plunged into terrible darkness as a result of this relationship or this kind of an encounter. Both sides are there. With the feminine double, she has 4 aspects. And those aspects are mother, daughter, sister, and lover. In other words, we're kind of talking about gender, things having to do with gender. There are other archetypes that don't have anything to do with that, and someone can help me, that don't have anything to do with gender, but like the archetype of the orphan, for example. That's an archetype. When one feels like an orphan and a lost, alone person who will never be loved in the world, that doesn't have anything to do with gender.